December 21st, 2025, a date that marks a silent but violent shift in the global energy landscape. While the mainstream media remains fixated on stock tickers and quarterly earnings, reports have finally confirmed a breakthrough that changes everything. Samsung SDI has moved its silver carbon composite anode technology out of the research lab and directly onto the assembly line. This isn't a prototype. This isn't a concept. Samsung has officially announced a mass production roadmap for solid-state batteries capable of an unprecedented 900 watt-hours per liter in energy density. This isn't happening tomorrow. This is happening right now. We are witnessing the birth of a new era in energy storage, where performance is no longer a bottleneck. But as the headlines celebrate the future of transportation, they are failing to see the immediate reality. While the world looks at the cars, they're missing what just happened to the metal itself. Look, in the next 13 minutes, I'll show you how a single patent just placed a permanent silver lock on the retail market. We are moving past the era where silver was just a trace industrial metal used in tiny fractions for solar panels or circuit boards. We are entering a technical transition where electric vehicles are moving from using 30 to 50 grams of silver to requiring a full kilogram per vehicle. This is the moment where the metal transitions from a secondary input to a core requirement. It is not a marginal conductive input. It is not a trace mineral. It is a structural electrochemical necessity. The implications for the global supply chain are absolute. As manufacturers prepare to pivot, the question for every investor and every consumer shifts from price to availability. Available information paints a clear directional trend that most are ignoring. Is the silver even there to be bought? Phase 1 of this shift begins with the silver carbon composite anode. To understand why the demand for this metal is about to explode, you have to understand the technical wall that lithium-ion batteries have finally hit. For years, the industry has struggled with dendrite growth, those needle-like lithium structures that grow during charging cycles, piercing separators and causing the thermal runaway fires we've all seen in the news. Samsung's new architecture uses a silver carbon host matrix to suppress these dendrites entirely. This is the breakthrough that allows for a 600-mile driving range, a 9-minute rapid charge, and a lifespan of 20 years. The performance metrics are undeniable, but the material cost is staggering. When you look at the data bursts from recent industry disclosures, the math becomes unavoidable. Each individual battery cell requires up to 5 grams of silver. With a typical electric vehicle battery pack containing roughly 200 cells, we are looking at a requirement of 1 kilogram of physical silver for every single car that rolls off the line. This isn't fear-mongering. This is pattern recognition. We are seeing a structural shift where a precious metal becomes an industrial anchor. Industry experts at S&E Battery Day 2024 revealed the roadmap, and the trajectory is set. If this technology becomes the new standard, the automotive sector will no longer be a consumer of silver. It will be a vacuum for it. Go verify these specs yourself by searching for the Samsung SDI disclosures from the 2024 summit. What you will find is an industry-wide pivot that is already in motion. The silver is being integrated into the very architecture of the future, creating a demand profile that has no historical precedent. The transition is moving from the theoretical to the mechanical, and the metal is the only thing standing in the way of global adoption. This leads us into Phase 2, the mathematical impossibility of the current silver market. Global silver production currently sits at approximately 25,000 tons annually. On its own, that might seem like a significant number, but it ignores the fact that the silver market is already entering its 4th consecutive year of a structural deficit. The Silver Institute has already predicted a shortfall of 6,719 tons for this year alone, and that is before the mass adoption of solid-state technology. Now, run the numbers for the automotive pivot. If just 20% of global car production, roughly 16 million vehicles, adopts Samsung's silver-heavy batteries, the demand for silver would surge by 16,000 tons. That is more than half of the world's total mine production consumed by a single industry. But if adoption reaches 80%, which is the stated goal for many high-performance manufacturers, the demand climbs to a staggering 64,000 tons of silver per year. The math simply does not work. We are facing a future of stockpiling, export restrictions, and price controls, as nations realize their energy transition is tethered to a finite resource that is already in short supply. The slush fund is empty. There is no hidden reserve of silver waiting to be tapped to meet this level of demand. Available disclosures point in a single direction: a total exhaustion of the retail supply. When you look at the animated charts of production versus this new EV demand, the gap isn't just a challenge, it's a chasm. The current market is built on a delicate balance that has already been broken by the solar industry. Adding a structural requirement for the global automotive fleet creates a deficit that cannot be solved by incremental increases in mining. The industrial world is about to realize that the most critical component of the next decade isn't software, it's the physical metal. Phase 3 brings us to the Latin American bottleneck. Even if we wanted to mine our way out of this deficit, the geological and jurisdictional reality makes it nearly impossible. Mexico is currently the world's largest producer, but silver mining is not a simple tap that can be turned on at will. Approximately 70% of the world's silver is produced not from primary silver mines, but as a byproduct of lead, zinc, and copper mining. This means that silver production is tied to the demand for base metals, not the price of silver itself. While historical precedents have shown how markets react to sudden supply shocks, current industry reports indicate a much more difficult road ahead. We are seeing a consistent decline in average ore grades across the board, meaning more rock must be moved to extract the same amount of metal. Furthermore, the timeline for new production is working against us. It typically takes 10 to 15 years for a new primary silver mine to go from discovery to actual production. We do not have 15 years. The technology is launching in 2027. This creates a jurisdictional trap where the world is dependent on a handful of regions with declining output and increasing regulatory hurdles. Let me show you what's already begun that the media isn't covering. Major manufacturers are already looking at the epithermal vein systems of Mexico and realizing that the easy silver is gone. What remains is deeper, more expensive to extract, and strategically guarded. The disconnect between the speed of technological innovation and the reality of geological extraction has never been wider. We are moving toward a collision point where the digital and industrial demands for silver will crash into the physical limits of the earth. Pattern recognition tells us that when supply is this constrained and demand is this mandatory, the existing price models are completely irrelevant. But here is where it gets darker. We aren't just looking at a simple shortage. We are looking at a strategic lockup. When silver is integrated into safety-critical battery components, substitution becomes impossible. In the past, industrial users could switch to other metals if the price of silver spiked. But in the architecture of a solid-state battery, the silver is the host matrix. It is the very thing that prevents the battery from catching fire. This means that industrial demand is about to become completely price inelastic. Automotive manufacturers will pay any price to secure the metal because the alternative is shutting down their multi-billion-dollar assembly lines. We are moving into a period where silver is not sold, not exported, but stockpiled. National security and industrial survival will take precedence over the retail market. Available information paints a clear directional trend where the silver you see in the market today will soon be held in private vaults by the world's largest corporations. The pattern is clear, and the implications are absolute. But the question you need to ask yourself is this: when the scramble for the remaining ounces begins, who gets the silver first, you or Samsung? The consequences of this demand spike are only now being understood by the broader market. But the price discovery lag won't last forever. Analyst Kevin Bambro has already put forward a projection that silver could exceed $200 per ounce within the next 10 to 15 years as this structural shift takes hold. This isn't just speculation, it is a comparison to the patterns we have seen before. Charlie Morris of ByteTree has noted the similarities to the 2010 silver rally when the price jumped to $50 an ounce, driven in part by the surge in solar panel demand. But the vacuum effect we are seeing today is of a different magnitude entirely. As automotive giants begin to suck up the remaining retail supply, the pressure on the existing financial system will become unbearable. We are looking at the potential for a massive short squeeze. For years, banks have held significant bearish positions in the silver market, betting on price stability. But if those banks are forced to liquidate their positions as physical demand overwhelms the paper market, the move will be explosive. This isn't happening tomorrow. This is happening right now. The market is transitioning from a period of abundance to a period of extreme scarcity, and the price is the last thing to reflect that reality. Once the mass production of these silver-heavy batteries begins, the window for price discovery will close. The illusion of a stable, liquid silver market will break, and the true value of the metal will be revealed. So, what are the actionable steps in a market facing a structural lock? First, understand the landscape. This is not financial advice. This is pattern recognition. The data shows a closing window of opportunity before the 2027 mass production cycle begins. For those who see the pattern, the logical step is to secure physical silver before it is absorbed by the industrial complex. This means looking beyond paper contracts and ETFs that may not be backed by the physical metal they claim to represent. When the vacuum effect starts, only the physical ounces in your possession will matter. Specific recommendations from market leaders point toward recognized bullion, such as the 1-ounce British Britannia 2026 or the 1-kilogram Valcambi bullion bars. These are the assets that represent a direct claim on the metal that the world's largest battery manufacturers are now fighting over. Don't be average. Don't wait for the confirmation from the mainstream news cycles, because by the time they are reporting on the silver shortage, the price will have already reflected the reality. The opportunity lies in seeing the shift before it is complete. Secure your position while the retail supply still exists. The time for observation is ending. We are witnessing a transition from a linear demand model to a step function growth curve. The silver market has never seen anything like this. The clock is ticking. Samsung has already signed agreements with giants like Toyota, and the mass production timelines are locked for 2027. This isn't a theory. It is a multi-billion-dollar industrial pivot that is already underway. As the world moves toward high-performance, solid-state energy, the very ground beneath our feet is being revalued. The metal that was once considered a secondary precious metal is now the most critical industrial asset of the 21st century. Go verify this yourself. Look at the patents, look at the production roadmaps, and look at the mining data. The pattern is unmistakable for those who are willing to look. We are entering a period of unprecedented scarcity, and the only question that remains is whether you will be holding the metal or watching from the sidelines. If you want to track the silver-carbon anode progress and the shifting global supply chains as we move toward 2027, make sure to subscribe. We will continue to follow the data where it leads. Comment below. Given the math we've discussed today, do you believe silver is the new lithium?